Good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Dwayne Lawson Brown. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist with the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the first Business of the Arts session of the 2026 fiscal year. Overjoyed to be able to join you for this particular capacity building workshop because I have a long history of work within the nonprofit sector, and something that had been a challenge for many of the organizations that I worked with was fundraising. And so I'm overjoyed to see so many people attending this session and watching this session later in the future to learn more about how to supercharge your annual fund through major gifts fundraising. We have a stellar presenter that will be providing that information. But first, um, we want to let everyone know if you are asking a question pertaining to the presentation, feel free to ask your question in the Q&A box. So you would either see the Q&A box on the bottom row below the presentation, or you would click the three buttons for more, and then ask your question within Q&A. I will also be monitoring chat to try to catch questions, just in case you don't find the Q&A box. All right. With that said, we can get into our presentation. Derry Derringer, owner of Derringer Consulting, is an independent nonprofit fundraising consultant with 20 years experience who uses facilitation, consulting, and coaching methods to help nonprofits achieve transformative results through major gifts and capital campaigns.
Yeah.
Derringer, Derringer Consulting's 80 plus clients have been in the human services, arts and culture, and education sectors. A dynamic problem solver and motivator, Derry has worked for business, nonprofit, and international organizations and is certified in facilitation, coaching, and fundraising. Please take it away, Derry Derringer.
Thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate that very much. It's a pleasure to be here with the DC Commission on Arts and Humanities. Um, so go ahead and mute yourselves if you would, so we're hearing a little bit of background noise. Sorry about that. Looks like I got muted too. Allery Clark from DC Collaborative actually introduced me to Dwayne, and that's why I'm here. So shout out to DC Collaborative and DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities. So I wanted to ask you a question just to get the wheels turning around major gifts fundraising. You can put a response in the chat. What's the number one challenge you personally face in securing large gifts from individuals? Just what comes to mind? Put it in the chat. What is the number one biggest challenge you face? I want to hear from you. Identifying the right donors and not enough time, asking for the money, profiling donors, prioritizing and researching donors, how much to ask. So yeah, this is pretty common. All these concerns are very valid and you know pretty wide ranging. And we're gonna cover a lot of these here, most if not all of these. But if by the end of the presentation you have questions and you wanna come in and ask a question, we're gonna have questions at the end. So please put your questions in the Q&A box. Um, so this is about major gifts fundraising, and the title Supercharge Your Annual Fund because this is like major gifts fundraising typically falls within the annual fund. Um, and it really can be a transformative element to your annual fund because when John, for example, gives you a $500 gift every year through your appeal or through maybe an event, you can ask two, three, five, 10 times that when you're making a specialized ask with John. So we're really talking about magnifying the person's annual gift. Um, think about 5 to 10 times. It can be 20 times, but let's think about 5 to 10 times what they're typically giving because you're giving them that extra attention. So we're gonna this workshop is going to focus on just the essentials. And you're going to get the slides after this presentation. You're also going to get two handouts that I present here today. Um, so let's dig in. We're going to cover why major gifts is important, how to define major gift levels, what is the donor relationship cycle, which is really important, identifying top prospects, cultivating, soliciting, stewarding, engaging board members. These are kind of like the essentials, right? And even if you have 5 hours a week, I'm gonna kind of put that as like a minimum. If you want to do major gifts fundraising and you can dedicate 300 minutes a week just to major gifts fundraising, I would still focus on these essentials, but just in smaller bites. Okay. So you don't need to put in 20, 30, 40 hours a week in major gifts to start raising major gifts. I'm going to say 5 hours or more. So why don't we start there? Um, just a bit about the objectives today, being able to answer your toughest questions. I want you to be able to see what it looks like to cultivate a donor or a prospect over a year's period of time, be able to know what a good major gift starting level is for your organization, give you some templates. These are some things I want you to kind of come away with today. At the end of the presentation, I give you my email, I give you my Calendly scheduling link, and if you want to chat, I'm available. Um, so don't be shy if you have follow-up questions. This is a bit about me. Um, Over half my organizations are human services and arts. And I've worked with $500,000, actually $200,000 organizations as an annual budget and $250 million organizations. The big common denominator is their private philanthropic fundraising is typically under 5 million. I worked with an arts organization, music organization called El Sistema USA. I don't know if you've heard of them. Um, I think their budget was 400,000 or 500,000, and our goal was to help them raise like 150,000 from major gifts, which we did, and they didn't have any major gifts program. So you don't have to be a big organization to work with me. I like the smaller organizations as much as I do the medium and large ones. Sometimes, sometimes more so. I'm in Alexandria, Virginia. Half my clients are in the DMV, the other half are around the country. I've got two in New York, one in California, and the rest in the DC area. Um, 80% of your funding is going to come from 20% of your donors. So the pyramid of the largest donors from the fewest amount of people at the top of the pyramid and on down to the most people with the largest amount is very true when you look at your donor base. Okay. And so we're talking about the lead gifts in your individual giving pool. And 80% of your funding is going to come from individuals. It's not true for everybody. There are organizations out there whose missions are such that they get more money from governments and from private funders or corporations. But major gifts typically with organizations is a foundational element. Here are some other reasons why it matters. I'll just let you read through those. Unrestricted giving, um, Volunteer and board pipelines can come from major gifts. There's all kinds of benefits. So let's get down into it. So this is going to be one of the handouts. I'm going to give you an exercise. And in fact, when you get the handout after this presentation, you are welcome to fill it out and send it to me for my insights. Okay. So where does a major gift level start? In fact, go to the chat if you want and tell me what the minimum level gift you consider to be a major gift. Go ahead and do that now while we're talking. So I want to know. 5,000, 1,000, 100,000. Somebody had 100,000 in there. So there's some organizations that are already doing major gifts that start. So 500, right? If you look at this chart, you'll see that there's a couple things going on. There's a low, medium, and high levels, and there's a organization A, B, and C. So the universities and the hospitals, right? They're probably going to be in the organization advanced. 100,000 and up is like a major gift. Or excuse me, 25,000 and up is a major gift. That's typical. Like a university, 25, 50, or 100. You know what I mean? Um, Small organizations might be at the 1,000 to begin. The handout that I send, the essence of it is you take your top 10 annual individual donors that have given like 2 years in a row, right? Unless there's like one person that gave $50,000, take that person out, like no big outliers. And you take that, you add those 10 donors up, and then you average that number, and that's your minimum. That's where you begin the conversation. It's not where you end the conversation, it's where you begin. So one of the things I find a lot of nonprofits shortchange themselves is by ending the conversation when they get to the top 5 donors rather than beginning. Because again, if your top 10 donors average gift is like 1,000, you want to start taking those top 10 donors to 5, 10, and 25,000. Why else would we ask you to spend all this extra time with individual people and all these resources if we weren't going to try to get 5 to 10 to $20,000 above and beyond, excuse me, 5, 10, or 20 times a person's annual gift? If you're not identifying and cultivating and asking, I'm going to say at least 3 times, but 5 to 10 times is really a good benchmark, then we got to talk, you know? So I know you all have plenty of 500. I'm sure you have many $100, but I'm sure you also have plenty of 500,000 and 2,000 and 5,000. So we probably have some things to play with there. Anyway, the last thing I'll say about this slide is the high, medium, and low. We have the high, medium, and low because these three benchmarks allow you to prioritize your time. So if you only have 5 hours in a week, right, you might be spending 3 of those 5 hours with your top 3 donors that are at the high range, the 10K and up, and the other 2 hours with the more quantity of the lower range. Because your top, your top 5 donors that you're trying to get bigger gifts, there might be $100,000 or a $500,000 plan gift in there. There might be a lead gift for a campaign, right? Where all of a sudden you're doing $1 million campaign and you ask them for 100,000 or 250,000 to start the campaign. And the more time you spend with them, the more likely you're going to get that massive gift. Okay. Um, let's move on to this here. Donor relationship cycle. So, actually, Dwayne, do we, how many do we, I'm not going to go to the Q&A right now, but I do want to encourage people to put questions in the Q&A as you think of them, and then we're going to address them at the end. So please ask your questions if they're coming up. Um, this is the foundation of any fundraising, but in particular, it's true when it comes to big gifts. So foundations, companies, individuals, they all go through this cycle, but it's pretty pronounced when you're talking about an individual person. Um, and you'll see that if you begin at identification, you're going to want to be able to pay attention and go through each of these stages rather than skip anything or shortchange your investment in any of these. So cultivation and stewardship have the largest arc because that's where the most time will be spent. Time investment is the cultivation and stewardship. Imagine cultivation as I like to break it down into three sections. If you are educating or informing, you are involving, and you are inspiring, you are cultivating somebody, right? You are getting them closer to want to make an impact with your organization. Um, inform, involve, inspire. On the other hand, stewardship, okay, stewardship, people probably think about, I'm sure you all are thinking about this, is that it seems to be very similar to cultivation. Stewardship is a way to cultivate the relationship through things like thanking them, recognizing them, and acknowledging them. So yes, you are going to be involving them, inspiring them, and informing them after they've made the gift, right? But that recognition and that thanking is really, really important. And that's the big distinction between stewardship and cultivation is come from that thanking and acknowledging mindset while also realizing that between them giving you that gift and identifying them for the next gift that you're doing kind of stewardship and cultivation in a package, if you will. But don't skip these steps. And a couple of you said identifying is really important. Usually what I'll do is, if I've got an ED that doesn't have a lot of time, we might pick 10 to 15 people that he or she works the entire year. And maybe those 10 people represent, $22,000 a year in the organization, but maybe we want to kind of bump that up to try to get like say 70, 75,000 from that group over a year, over the course of a year or 18 months. So it doesn't have to mean you're working with a ton of people. It's more surgical approach. Donor relationship cycle. Um, so let's get into it here. So I'm gonna talk about each one. Identifying top prospects. So I think I said 80. Well, I think before I was talking about individual giving. This is more of like the ratio. 90% of your funding is going to come from 10% of your donors. So that's that top down. That's that rationale and why identifying your top donors is so important. That 90-10 or 80-20 rule. And these are people that you are going to research in one way or another, and it's going to be high touch, high personalization. Um, and limited time means that, when you go to reach out to somebody, you only have so much opportunity for a first impression or when you get a meeting. So you want to get it right. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but um, identifying prospects is probably, it's probably one of the most, probably the main reason why a lot of EDs and development directors don't get into major gifts because they maybe get overwhelmed with where to start in terms of how to identify. You can you can look at um, your database and look at your donors in terms of the largest gift they gave, the last gift they gave, the number of gifts total, and their total revenue. And you can look at the recency of the donors, the amount they've given overall, and the loyalty, the number of times they've given, and you can do an RFM to start to prioritize donors. Recency, frequency, and amount. That's you can look that up and you can do that yourself. If you don't have a database to do research, effective ways to research are A, Google to get a starting point. B, asking your volunteers, board members, and staff if they know people with on the list of donors. And C, asking those donors directly, or when you're in front of other donors, asking them if they know people in the community or among their donors. They have background on them, and you begin to build a profile of these top donors. And I haven't even mentioned wealth screening, and I haven't mentioned iWave or donor search, right? So there are ways you can get information. Probably the most underrated way of identifying top prospects and doing research on them is asking them directly the right questions. Like, where do we fit among your philanthropic priorities? And what other charities do you give to and why? So just some examples. Um, Here's a system. So you're going to get these slides afterwards, but here's a kind of a 1, 2, 3 step on how to identify, say, your top 40 major gift prospects. So the most generous last year, the most generous lifetime, the most loyal, and then inclination and capacity, and then step 3. So step 1, 2, 3. Okay. That's a simple way to, run a donor list of the last, the current, the last 2 fiscal years of your donors. Um, don't run a transaction report that has each donation. Run a donor profile report, which is basically one donor per line, and it shows their first gift amount and date, their last gift amount and date, their largest gift amount and date, their total giving revenue, and their total number of gifts. That is the best way to begin to sort and prioritize your prospects. If your database can't do that, give me a call and we'll talk to the database company and get them to create that report for you, or we'll get you a new database company. I think all databases can do that. And then you can do it manually if you're using Excel. Um, let's go to cultivation. So, um, rather than talk to you about what to say during meetings and what to say during an email, let's talk about the why, you know, the, what are you trying to achieve? You're at point A, you want to be at point B. Whenever you pick up the phone or you're meeting with somebody or you're emailing or texting them, um, what can you do specifically with that person to build their trust, to build a connection? So relationship is very vague. I should probably change that, a connection, um, and their knowledge about the organization. In fact, I might change this slide to go along the lines with my last, the inform, educate, and inspire, because that's kind of more specific and more, I think it's more practical. Um, but anything that you do that can share common values, where you can find common interests, it doesn't necessarily have to be around them giving money to you. It can be golf, it can be reading, it can be knitting, it can be where your kids went to school. Um, that is cultivating too. It doesn't always have to be about you and the organization or their giving to the organization. It can be personal items as well. So cultivation, really important. So after cultivation, this is something I've just started to talk to my clients about, work with my clients kind of in a systematic way. As a consultant, if I have the tools and the processes that they can use, then it becomes easier for us to have a conversation where I can like coach them and work with them, their how busy they are, their personality, the staff, and focus on the training and the skill building, the coaching, and then they use the tools to kind of like implement it. So one of the tools I'm starting to talk about is kind of like a 3 meeting series, okay, with major gifts. Imagine an introductory meeting or discovery, get to know, a pre-ask meeting, and then a solicitation meeting. Now, maybe all of that won't be able to happen, but I do want you to be thinking in those terms, okay? And why is that? So if you've never met somebody, okay, I'm going to take Jill Oxamet. So if I've never met Jill and she's been a donor, okay, I need to find a way to have a one-on-one conversation with Jill. That's by phone, it's by Zoom, or it's by in person. Okay. Email doesn't really cut it. I mean, I didn't say that. I should have said this at the beginning of this whole entire presentation. Um, if you're not one-on-one with people, you're unlikely to get any major gift that's eye-poppingly big. Right? You might go from $1,000 to $2,000 and be like, "Woo, that's great." But if you're not meeting them one on one, right, you really have their full attention. I don't care who it is, how busy they are. You're not really moving the needle with major gifts. Okay. So I know you're busy, right? And we go to the 5 hours a week. Getting that meeting is really important because once you get that one-on-one meeting, that first meeting, right? Let's suppose Jill says yes to the meeting, right? And it's a Zoom meeting. Maybe it's 20 minutes. She's likely to give a bigger gift. How big and when, but she's interested. And I've been able to uncover that she's interested. And now we're talking one-on-one. So that first meeting is a get to know where it's not a lot of heavy lifting, but I'm asking questions to, right? She's liking me, she's trusting me, she's less trusting the organization. I'm sharing why I'm the ED and why it inspires me. And it's a back and forth here, get to know, right? And um, my goal with Jill as a call to action at the end, right? This is where a lot of people don't really understand the magic or I guess the real strategy is if I'm meeting with Jill, I want to have a reason to meet with Jill again or do something with Jill again, right? Now, maybe we don't have that second meeting right away, but if Jill gets introduced to the organization through a tour, or Jill's able to interact with some program information and we have a conversation by email, a follow-up conversation, whatever it might be, if I'm educating or involving or inspiring her in some other ways following that meeting, the relationship continues on until there's a point in time where I would invite Jill to have what I call like a pre-ask meeting or like a briefing meeting. So let's suppose we're raising $500,000 um, and I can't just ask Jill for a lot of money for that. And I can't really just like hit her with the $500,000 campaign on the first time we're meeting, right? It's a first date and then the ask. And then in the middle is this opportunity. That is when, because she's expressed interest in the organization and she does seem amiable to learning more, you brief her or you tee up you do a pre-ask meeting to tee up the ask by talking to Jill about the campaign, about the needs, about the impact, and ask her questions. Ask her to get involved in providing insights on the strategy and how she feels about our strategy for getting to the goal and blah, 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 right? So now she's starting to get vested in the project. And then you're going to be ready to then talk to Jill about an ask. And that call to action at the end of the pre-ask meeting might very well be, Jill, it it seems like you're very excited about what we're doing here with this campaign, and you understand our approach, and certainly your feedback around how we might get there is super helpful. Um, if we were to um, ask you to consider in the future, and we're not right now, but if we would ask to support this campaign, is this something you would consider? And if she says yes, then great, super. Um, I'd love to be able to arrange, when the time comes, maybe it's in the next month. I'd love to be able to arrange a time to actually, now that I've been able to talk to you today, put together a meaningful proposal for you to be able to consider. And we can have like a 15, 20-minute meeting for you to take a look at that. How does that sound? Great. And then you're scheduling the solicitation meeting. I'm pretty excited about this 3 meeting series because it does make it easy for busy executives to kind of organize and um, you know provide a structure for how to do major gifts. And this might happen, between identifying, cultivating, asking, and stewarding Jill. It might happen over the course of like a 6 or 24 month period. But if Jill's a $500 donor, right, and we're doing a major gifts campaign, maybe it's not a capital campaign, but maybe it's like a 2 year effort to raise significant dollars from the individual base to do something special. I might be asking Jill to give a $5,000 gift for this over the course of 2 years. So if she says yes, then we went from her $500 gift to a $2,500 gift each year over 2 years. Um, and at it's 5,000 on a $500,000 campaign, she would probably be in like the middle tier, not the lead donors, but the major donors within that campaign. All right. Um, so solicitation, you want to do it in person or by Zoom or face to face? If you need to do it by email or text or snail mail. You can, okay, you can, and you will sometimes. Some people are really busy and your invitations land even though they can't meet you. So you just take what you can get and you ask for a specific gift by email, mail, or text. And you make it customized. If I'm asking somebody, if Jill's too busy to meet, and I think she's one of my top 20 to 40 donors, I'm going to find out what she prefers. Does she want to be asked by mail, text, or email? And I'm going to make that my business to find out and some other information. So I put my best foot forward and being able to ask for a specific amount as much as possible. And I might even follow up with a phone call and say, Jill, out of respect for your time, I know you love the organization. You've been a long time donor. We're asking, through the mail channel, because you said that's what you prefer. And I just want to let you know that's coming in the mail, or hopefully you've gotten it. And I'm here if you have any questions. And, we would love to see you at that $5,000 level for our campaign, by December 31st, if you're able. So just don't rely on it as a crutch. If most of your major gifts are by email and text and stuff, you're leaving money on the table, and I'm going to be giving you the hairy eyebrow, kind of looking on over your shoulder virtually within this space. So that's solicitation. Um, the last thing I want to say, asking for large gifts is nuanced. That's that third diamond. These 3 meeting series, you are picking up and you are developing rapport and trust and asking a lot of really good questions that helps you really understand what inspires Jill to want to give big, right? If I find out why she cares, what her philanthropic priorities are, what she wants for the community, what she loves about us, what she hates about us, you know what I mean? Not what she hates, but what she'd like to see improved. you know? She's going to want to give more. And if she has the potential to give more and you hit the right buttons and ask her, she's going to likely give it. And maybe she'll give a plan gift or something. Um, Most of major gifts don't come from cash. They come from non-cash giving. They come from like retirement, stocks, um, DAFs, things like that. Um, so let's go on to stewardship. This is another kind of 1, 2, 3 approach. Um, you can do an impact report, saying thank you and um, showing how the gift was used and how it made an impact. That's pretty much stewardship right there in the box. But this impact report is a way to, um, you can do a 1 or 2 page letter and then customize it for the person and send that out, or it can be a cover letter to your annual report or your program report. But usually when somebody's giving, they're thinking 3 or 4 basic things. Is this organization reputable and trustworthy? Is there a need? How much do they need? How's my money going to be spent? And what impact is it going to make? That's it. So those are the fundamentals right there. Everybody's asking that. Okay. So let's talk about board members. So we're at 6. Yeah, we're about, we're almost we got maybe 4 or 5 more slides. Board members. Yeah, this is I know you all are shaking your heads. Um, we love our boards, but our boards can be tough. Because they are volunteers, they are donors, they are leaders of the organization, but they don't always it's not always easy to work with boards in a way that is going to provide in terms of fundraising the maximum amount of giving and getting that they have the potential for. And that's probably one of the big frustrations is, oh man, I know my board can give more. I know they can get more. I just don't know how to get there. So, um, board engagement. So donors really do want to see your board giving 100% every year, personally giving a personal gift each year, cash every year, each year. Um, and I'm just looking through 2, 3, and 4. I always say that board engagement around fundraising is two big parts. One is the giving and one is the getting, because the giving is a philanthropic hat. So Jill, if she's on our board, um, actually I'm going to go to somebody else because Jill got her limelight. I'm going to go to Cam Hawkins. So if Cam is a donor and a board member, as a donor, he thinks with a different part of his brain than when he's a board member. And he probably even thinks from a different part of the brain between the board member and when he's a volunteer, like doing like regular program volunteer work. So I like to, when I'm doing the giving and getting policies, to separate those out. And I'm going to give you a handout that has a board commitment sheet that's going to have the job description on one side and the board commitment form on the other. And what I like to do is, let's suppose Cam is the board chair. I might say, Cam, um, he's a donor, right? He's a good chair and he wants the board to be more involved. We might get together and create an approach to ask the board to set a board giving goal for the year or even 2 years. And we might even ask the board to put on a piece of paper the range of their gift should they be wanting to be a part of this campaign, this $500,000 campaign. And we might add up all those ranges and then go back to the board and say, based on the board's feedback, we came up with this low range and this high range. that you as a board collectively said you could give to this campaign. Now, what would you guys like your board goal to be? So they create the board goal from those initial votes, those giving entries. So you enroll them. You enroll them in a kind of a strategic way with at least one or two board members as allies to make sure you're not stepping on any toes and you're following the line to have them set the goal. And then when you have that goal, you're going to be cultivating and asking, identifying, cultivating, asking, and stewarding like you would any other donor, major gift donor. Matter of fact, like a major gift donor. So if Cam's buddy Angela Kramer is not a major gift donor in her giving level, but she's a board member, I say treat her like a VIP, treat her like a major gift donor because she's a board member and a donor. Treat every one of your board members like they're VIP donors because they play those multiple roles. But you ask each donor, excuse me, you ask each board member to give to that goal within the campaign one-on-one. Maybe you split the list up, and I think you'll be surprised that you'll hit your goal. Um, anyway, we could probably do a whole session on board giving and getting if we wanted to. Um, But here are some other as a constellation project. I'm going to give you one or two more slides on boards. So effective philanthropic boards starts with clear and compelling expectations during recruitment. I'm sure a lot of you all are doing this, and I know because like the last thing you want to spend time on when you're really busy is like the process of like screening and interviewing candidates and talking to them about board giving and getting because you're like, oh, we're going to scare them away. But I think if Cam is sharing his personal story about why he gives and serves on the board, and Jill is sharing about why she serves, um, and you're clear up front, I think you're gonna weed out the dead wood and you're gonna attract the great ones. So I recommend really focusing on the recruitment phase and being upfront about the giving and getting policy. Number two is what I just mentioned about treating every board member as a major gift, regardless of giving level. See, because your board member donor governs the organization, supervises the executive director, develops the strategic plan, gets other people to give, ambassadors in the community about the organization, so they're a multiplier in a positive or negative way. So maybe you guys have had negative experiences. Well, those are really negative if they're a board member because they sour the well if they're at the leadership level. But if you're the ED, you want to be talking to each board member one-on-one twice a year, even if it's like a 15-minute chat. You're like, Cam, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How are we doing? If you're not doing that as an ED, you're spending your time in the wrong places. Expect and prioritize 100% giving. Yep, I mentioned that. And then meet each board. There it is. Meet each board member one-on-one. I talked to Kay Fritz, one of the senior program officers. What was her name? Shoot. It's on the tip of my tongue. But we were talking a couple years ago, and I asked, what's the difference maker for EDs? And she said, yeah, they know each of their board members well. So, all right. Yeah, we're at 6. This is pretty good timing. We're near our last two slides, and so I've got some slots to talk if you want to chat. Um, there's my email address, my Calendly. And Dwayne, why don't we open this thing up for questions? And if Dwayne, Dwayne, you can, you're the master of choosing what questions you want to ask, and then you can maybe say the person, and then the person can come off of the camera if they want, in case they have a follow-up question. But we'll see how that works.
Well, folks seem to have been a bit shy,
Oh,
because we don't have any questions in the Q&A box. But I do
okay.
want to ask a question that may spark some conversation. So you mentioned a lot around building the relationship with potential donors as well as your ongoing donors. And Doug, I see your hand, and we will get your question in one sec. Uh, would you suggest that be the executive director building those relationships, or should that be a dedicated staff member or a designated board member, or how do you suggest organizations go about that ask?
And so you mean both donors and non-donors? You brought that up
Um,
at the beginning. Would tell me more about who the audience is?
let's talk about donors.
Okay.
If you have actually no, let's jump with new donors or non-donors.
Yeah,
If they are
prospects, let's say.
interested. Yep.
Um, I mean, I don't like to use should because I don't know the personality of the organization. You know, people who have never given, so that you know how long the journey is between, if you've been a donor or you've met somebody who wasn't a donor and then becomes a donor, or talked to somebody that's never been a donor, you know what the journey is between not being a donor and a donor. It's pretty long. The journey between a first gift and a second gift is shorter, but still long. And then the distance between a second gift and a third, fourth, and fifth is very short, right? So,
Mm,
right? So an effective way, one effective way to get to acquire new donors. Let's suppose we're not talking about acquisition mailings and we've got a tight budget, right? We might do, you know, it could be at the gala, but maybe it's at small receptions or tours where board members, volunteers, partners are given the opportunity to invite people to a attractive introduction tour, get to know. And then at that point, I think it's the role, depending on the personalities and the organization, the role of board members, volunteers, and staff to have conversations during those events and then do the follow up, which is even more important than the event. So I think it's going to be a mix. Most likely, the people want to talk to the ED because they're the leader. But if they only have so much time and energy, and they're only one person, with those kind of funnel events, you want to spread the wealth and have as many people engaging as many as possible, and then spreading the wealth in terms of follow up. But ED is a biggie, but it's a team effort when it comes to the heavy time consuming element of acquiring donors at events.
indeed. And then the Kathleen actually was asking, what about major donors? You already have some major donors, and they you want to ask them for more. Should that be the ED?
I'd say the if the organization if they don't have, let's suppose the ED is the only development person, like they don't have a development office, yes, the executive director.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, everything goes up to the leader of the staff. Um, that's correct. Now, I'm curious as to, and maybe we can ask that. I can ask a follow-up question after Doug's question, but the person who asked it, I want to know why they're asking that question because I think there's some information I'm not getting on why the question's being asked. Let's go to Doug, and then I'll come back. Was it Marjorie, Dwayne?
Well, we actually have a few other questions that
Oh,
have
okay.
rolled in. So that was Kathleen with the
Oh,
follow-up, but
Kathleen. Okay. Sorry.
Hi, Derry. Thanks for taking my question. Thanks for hosting DC Commission, and good to be here. So my name is Doug. I'm a new executive director of a new 501(c)(3) that's quite small, and currently the board is just people who actually work on this is a musical project. So my question is about how to start acquiring your first gifts at all, right? And so this is something I'm brand new. I'm sorry if that's outside of the wheelhouse of the rest of the crowd.
No,
And
it's not.
And like I've gone to one of these before, I think held at the Foundation Center several years ago. It was like a live seminar. And so like I find myself doing some of these behaviors like cultivation and these things. But one of the challenges I have is I have friends and personal contacts now, relationships with people who might have the capacity to give. And I'm really, really shy about asking that because I'm worried it will hurt the integrity of my relationship with these individuals. And so I'm just wondering what advice you would give to brand new organizations on how to get started. Thank you.
Yeah. So, what what's the program work that you do in a sentence or two?
So we are a saxophone quartet.
Okay.
We perform for the community. We commission composers. We've been supported by several commission on the arts commissioning things, and we do a
Okay.
variety of things. But we just incorporated this year, and we're
Okay.
hoping to expand our audience impact, create albums, things of that nature. Yeah.
Okay. So, if you since you make music and you had a reception with live music and and people were able to hear the music and socialize and then learned maybe there was a 10-minute speaking role for you about how the organization got started and why it matters. Um, and then there was a follow-up invitation to support, right? Or for them to join in some other way, whether it's a newsletter, what have you. Um, you can ask that way. Um, if you have, I mean, your friends, it is, I mean, if you did one or two meetings with your friends that you thought might be interested, right? You can say some things up front, right? That to kind of break the ice to say, look, this meeting is not about asking you for to give to the organization, but I do want to share because I'm passionate about it, and I'd be interested in seeing where you like to be a part of helping the community. Where are your interests, and it's just to get to know. And they get to hear your story. If they, you can tell if somebody's interested or not. If they're not interested, then you glide into a kind of a no strings attached, easy kind of like get together. And if they seem like they're engaged and they're asking questions, then you can say, look, it seems like this is of interest to you. Are you interested? Would you be interested in taking the next step to have another conversation about possible support? And then they'll say, yes or no. But we're not going to ask for a gift. And, I just want to, I'm excited about it. Just want to introduce it to you. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that sounds good to me. I think, and there's probably other people here that might feel in the same place. Like my initial reaction is, well, I better have my ducks in a row, and I better know exactly where the funding is going and exactly what the project scope is, and all this laid out before I make any kind of ask. And then, right, you're just like putting out fires your whole life, so you never get to that point, and you never make the ask. And
I,
so, to what
yeah,
level would you say you can just ask for people to support what you're doing generally, or does it have to be specifically towards a project, cause, or expense?
it doesn't have to be at a specific cause or expense, but I would get your ducks in a row now, even if you're asking for general support.
Mhm.
Because remember going back to the questions that donors ask.
Yeah,
So if I were you and you're new, right, I would, I would put together, okay, what's your budget for next year? What are
what's
the
the
top,
impact? Yeah,
what's that?
what's the impact, right?
Well, I mean, that was like number four or fifth on my list. I mean, I'd say the total amount of money you need. What are the three or four or five things you're spending that money on, right? Just like three to five things. Um, and what's that going to result in? Right? And then impact. I mean, impact can alone can scare you, Doug, from doing anything because it's like, well, how am I going to show impact if I just started? So don't get too crazy. Like you can have a couple of parents say how the kids joining the quartet or the learning the was it saxophones,
Yep,
clarinets, saxophones.
saxophones.
Saxophones, yeah.
Clarinet.
Um, how that's really helped them like up their grades, kind of thing, or help them be better students or be more disciplined. That alone can be enough impact for our purposes. Um, and then so you can just put in front of your friend, you know, just to say, this is what we're doing. This is good, what it's going to cost us next year. This is how we're spending our money, right? It doesn't have to be fancy. I mean, you could probably do that on one page.
Yeah. Even perspective things like we'd like to do 8 concerts. They're going to cost this much. And we can
Absolutely.
afford it. Okay.
If you only have a $40,000 budget next year, but you'd like to do 8 concerts, if you raise 100,000, you have a regular goal and then have a stretch goal that include the concerts.
And my last question as part of this is so many arts organizations I work with or serve on the board with are living from hand to mouth and they have no legacy strategy. And so would you design some sort of contribution into like a trust
Endowment,
it
like an
right
endowment.
endowment?
Um, yeah, so they don't have a reserve or an endowment or anything like that. Is that what you mean?
Well, yeah. So another organization I work with is the 21st Century Consort, which is now in their 50th season, a K Fritz benefit or grantee. And
Right.
I'm shocked that in all 50 of their seasons, they have no endowment. They have nothing other than what comes in each year. And so I'm curious about plans to sort of divert parts of donations into a planned in stability endowment and what your thoughts and recommendations are on that. I've often advised in this direction, and I've always been shot down. But it's a scary thing for me to watch organizations just on the brink of failure each year.
Yeah,
I,
I mean,
I
that
should build my question. I've taken up enough of your time, and there are
no,
people.
it's okay. No,
Thank
it's a good question. Um, and I'm not going to be able to fully answer it here other than to say, um, like a operating reserve is the first step, and then an endowment would be like a second step, and um, likely to come from your most loyal donors, no matter how big or small they are. So that organization, when it goes out and talks about major gifts, right? Um, and their operating funds and restricted gifts or whatever, they should be offering the long-term sustainability option because a lot of people, unless you ask and have that discussion, you're not going to know they want to support that, just like you alluded to. So Doug, even you, I would put out there among your options, hey, give unrestricted so we can be most effective and where it's needed most, or you can give specifically to fund a concert, or you can give to our reserve. So they have a menu of 3 ways to give, and let them choose. It's like, Doug, do you want to buy the vacuum on the second or the fifth of the month, right? So that's the idea.
thank you so much. It's so helpful, and for hosting as well. Thank
You're my pleasure.
Um, So we have a nice selection of questions. This is one that I think might be a bit of a rapid fire one from an anonymous participant. How do you identify people with money to give in this economy?
There's plenty of people with money in this economy. Um, it's the same people when the economy was good. Um, don't stop fundraising because you think it's not a right time for people to give, because you don't make the decision for the donor on when it's the right time to give. Let the donor decide on when it's the right time to give. So don't be scared, right? And think that the glass is half empty, because when the economy's bad, there might be people wanting to give more to your organization because maybe they want to feel good because you're an arts organization. You're more about creativity and soul work that aren't as high priority when things are going great, right? Um, talk to your top 10 donors, invite them to a listening tour, and say, hey, Clyde, for example, Clyde, this year's been a year, and you're one of our most generous valued donors because of your generosity. We're looking to next year and the uncertainty in the world today and in our country. What's most important to you about what we're doing in 2026? So that anonymous person who asked that question, the way you find people with wealth is you talk to your loyal donors and you ask that exact question to them and you sit back and listen. And by asking that question and them being able to provide their insights about the country, the economy, the organization, you're going to find what Clyde thinks is most important about your mission in 2026. And then when you talk to Clyde and cultivate Clyde and ask Clyde for a gift, you're going to ask at the intersection between what Clyde said he wants and what your organization's doing. And that's the way you get the bigger gift.
All right. Our anonymous participant has followed up.
Great.
And I think this will help shape a bit more. But when you don't have any donors above $250, some of us aren't around the 1%.
Okay.
So this is someone who, or this is someone or an organization that is, it sounds very community oriented, community rooted. And so many of their donors are directly within within the impacted community, I imagine. And so how do you ask for funds in a group
Yeah.
that you're not associated with directly?
Yeah. Good question. So so let's pretend um when there's a capital campaign and and I'm talking to um somebody who's going to give to the campaign, I might ask, I'm going to go back, I'm going to go to Isabel Cabezas. I might say, Isabel, might you know of anybody in the community, right, who might be interested in this campaign, right? Um, because we know Isabel has means and she's going to know people with means. Now, the anonymous donors question and response might be, well, the person that gave $250 is not going to know anybody that can give more than $250. Again, I'm not going to make that assumption, but I would use the same tactic. If that community organization has 25 donors who have given $250 or more 3 years in a row, that shows a level of loyalty. Meet with them and say, Isabel, um, help us transform this organization to the next level. We were a community-based organization, and the way we act as a community and our culture and the way that we treat, our beneficiaries and our volunteers and our donors is it's going to be about the community, right? Um, and we want to bring more people into the tent with resources, right, while staying who we are. Can we sit down with two or three other donors like you and have a brainstorm session on people you might know who might be interested in our mission and collect those names, and then I will follow up with you and we'll figure out how to actually meet them. You can make an introduction or we can go to lunch or what have you. So if Isabel has three or four other donors, there's energy there, and then you facilitate that conversation to see other people that they might know. You collect those names, and then I work with Isabel and the others individually to get those introductions in a way that's comfortable for Isabel. And that's how you get your foot in the door with people that have the ability to give $1,000, $5,000 gifts that are not yet donors. Hopefully hopefully you like that idea. Try it and see, tell me how it goes.
Indeed. I just want to acknowledge Malkia. I see your question. We'll get your question shortly. There were a few others before you in the chat. I just want to try to do as best as possible. Um, we have, I believe, Fidel Gomez Torres. Um, oh, I see you were about to come off camera or come on camera, or if you want to ask a question, go for it.
I can. I sent a couple of questions.
Yep.
So, my name is Fidel. I'm the founder of the American Veteran Arts Collective. We are a nonprofit that offers a workforce accelerator for veterans to translate military service into viable careers in the creative economy. Launched earlier this year. Over the last couple of months, I've been trying to figure out how I can get myself ready to speak to donors. And in that journey, I've been trying to figure out what are the validators that I'm going to need. So because I'm offering a workforce accelerator, I thought that pitching it to a university would be the right approach. I ended up proving to be the right approach. I got a six-figure investment from Boston University to validate the curriculum. So now we are moving into a fundraising phase on December 2nd, where we're going to have a national webinar and we're going to speak about the partnership. We're going to speak about the work that I'm doing and how it directly responds to the policy volatility that DC has experienced with the federal workforce contraction and the volatility that has affected the funding for a lot of our cultural institutions in DC. Um, I don't have a huge network. I am not shy about getting in front of people and asking the questions. But one of the things that I found in preparing for the fundraising stage is that I sometimes feel overwhelmed telling the story. And I feel overwhelmed because I'm not sure that everyone who is on the receiving end of the story is someone that is going to be a donor. I don't think that I have the discernment just yet to figure out who to target and whether the person who's listening to my story is indeed going to translate to a donor, or is just someone who is interested in the work that I'm doing. I put significant amount of effort into my website to make sure that it tells a story, it conveys the different ways in which donors can support. But my challenge right now is identifying those donors that I can cultivate and hopefully convert into big dollar donations. How
Okay.
do I know that I'm speaking to the right people?
Well, you're trying to do too much, as you alluded to when you say you're overwhelmed. So I wouldn't try at this point to talk to people and make them donors in the same breath. Just talk to them about the vision and ask them some questions and then leave it at that and see if they want to become donors as a result of that meeting, right? So let's say Fidel, I might say look, if you've got this big event, you've got BU. Matter of fact, my nephew goes to Boston University. He just came in by train. Um, it's great that you got that. So, and workforce and everything is accelerator. I mean, you're in the right mission. Follow up with people that went to the event. Okay. Fidel, what's your impression of the event? Right? What did you think? Right? How can we um what stood out to you about this event? Okay, suppose that Fidel, you start to talk to me about it, um, and I tell my story about I'm you, right? And I say, I'm fired up about this partnership. This event's been great. Thank you for this feedback. Um, Based on you coming to the event and this conversation, right? Do you see yourself becoming a donor to our organization, or um, you know? I take that you're interested in what we're doing. What would be a good next step for our relationship? Or, given that you came to the event and you took this meeting, I'm sensing that you're intrigued by what we're doing. I'd love to be able to put together a one pager that talks about where we're going, how much we need, and give you an opportunity to consider giving a gift. Would that be okay? Right? And so you're just teeing up the ask as a point of courtesy because you just met the person and you don't know if they're a donor and they're not a donor yet, and you're just really focusing on telling your story and asking them some good questions. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Is that helpful?
It is helpful. So with the webinar coming up, I strategically put it on December 2nd because it is Giving Tuesday.
Okay.
One of the things that I've been trying to figure out to work into into the agenda for the day is we have a panel. So we have the Smithsonian, which is one of my institutional partners. Boston University is going to be on that panel. I have someone who started the arts healthcare program at Walter Reed, and then we have a congressman that's joining to do like opening remarks. So the panel
Great,
itself is pretty powerful.
great.
But the whole purpose of having the webinar is to do the ask on Given Tuesday. I've been dreading figuring out what is the appropriate language to wrap up the webinar with a call to action that it is, if you believe in this work, these are the different ways in which you can support it.
So you're doing a webinar on Giving Tuesday,
Mhm.
and your last slide is going to be a call to action to give to Giving Tuesday?
Well, so I haven't decided what it is. So I wanted to do a call to action at the end.
Well, I
Um,
mean, look, the people you have on the panel, the last slide can say give to us during Giving Tuesday. I mean, you've already sold the organization with the panel. Just say it's Giving Tuesday. Here's a link. I mean, you don't need to do backflips on that give to Giving Tuesday. You just had a phenomenal panel, right? And just say, we are going to be doing great things, and we hope you enjoyed the webinar. If you give today, we're going to be able to um, we're going to be able to forward them. We're going to be able to um, operationalize these awesome people on the panel, whatever. You know what I mean? Just use the panel and make the ask, and put it at the end, and then collect their emails and email them after and say, in case you missed the last slide, here's another link to give.
okay.
That's
Yeah.
awesome that
Sounds
you're
good.
having all these people on the panel and Giving Tuesday. I mean, you can even have Giving Tuesday as like the beginning slide to say, we have set this up on Giving Tuesday because this is about giving, and we're giving you these people because they're awesome, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also, Fidel, exactly
Mhm.
what you said was was the pitch. Because you already have like you would have sold me, and I'm not a big money donor, granted, but you would have sold me right then and there because I've already gone through this experience. And then the ask is, hey, this is what we do, and this is what we want to continue to do. It's Giving Tuesday. We hope that you would be able to support us and continue to support us. So yeah, yeah, don't overthink it in
Well,
this your particular case.
Okay.
yeah,
Sounds good.
I agree with
Thank
that.
you.
So
Thank you so much.
Uh,
awesome, both of you.
Um, Going to move to another question.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm scrolling. Okay, Elizabeth Dinkova. What is your opinion on previewing the ask amount over email before making it in person if you already have a relationship with the donor?
Previewing the ask amount, like what, Elizabeth? Hey, I'm thinking about asking you this. Are you okay with that? Um, are you when you say previewing the ask amount, what do you mean? Hey,
Hello. Yes, that is what I mean. We have been following a Devois Institute cultivation plan that is now probably over 5 years old, so it may or may not be relevant. But one of the steps there basically one of the suggestions was to make the ask over email and then follow up with a call or an in-person
ah,
meeting. Would you say that that is a beneficial strategy, or is this received wisdom that isn't necessarily effective? What's your
I
stance
see.
on that?
Well, so Elizabeth, what's the alternative if plan A is to email the ask and then follow up by phone, is there another ask option other than that by email? Or is
Uh,
that the option?
I mean, the other option is to just ask them for a meeting and ask them at the meeting and not do any of that preparatory psychological preparation, if you will.
So you always want to try to get the meeting first. That's first priority. The email ask with the phone follow-up is like a plan D. It's the last resort. So if you can get the meeting. Um, um, but a lot of times it might be hard to get the meeting. So if you don't know the person, and you want to ask them for a major gift because it's something that you know about them, and it's year end, right? Here we are, and we need a big gift from these folks. You're, you're trying to do identification, cultivation, solicitation all within one phase, which is not gonna work. Um, and that may very well, did I guess, is that the situation, or do you know the person?
In the question, I specifically asked about donors we already have relationships or who already give us gifts on the regular. Whether in that case, previewing the ask or not makes a difference if we're trying to get the donor to go up significantly.
Yeah. If you want to try to go from their annual gift um to a major gift level, or if you want to try to let's suppose these people are giving $500 and you want to try to get um 2,500 and up. I would spend time to meet with them before you're going to be asking them for money, to meet them and learn about what they like and how they like to meet, and then try to set up to ask them in person or by Zoom or by phone, you know. But again, you not these days when people are really busy, not as many people want to meet, and they might still give you a big gift. Um, Now, if you have to resort to email and they don't want to meet, but you've asked them, um, you can ask them some questions to be able to find out about their philanthropy by email, to be able to try to make as accurate an email ask and a phone follow up as you can. And a lot of people skip those steps. They think if they don't want to meet in person, then they don't want to talk to me, but that's not the case. They might want to provide information by email. But try to get the Zoom meeting. Look, Elizabeth, 15 minutes. Let's just meet for 15 minutes. I really want to learn about who you are and why you care about us. And I just wanted to do it face to face by Zoom, um, and go that route. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Um, uh, I, why am I hi,
Hi,
why,
Marjorie.
hi. I'm trying to get on video, but I don't know why I'm not. But anyway, I own an art gallery for the last 47 years, and I have a nonprofit for the last 25 years.
Congratulations.
Pardon me?
Well done.
Yeah. And I'm a wood sculptor and furniture designer myself. And we built a mobile wood shop, and we're training a new generation of carpenters. We got our biggest grant from Events DC to build a mobile wood shop and a regular wood shop for 150,000. So I would suggest to people look at Events DC. We got another grant from them to do a traveling exhibition on the trees of DC, which is still traveling. Um, and what's interesting is, we're trying to teach a trade. And because of liability, they've taken almost all wood shops out of schools. I mean, when I was growing up in in Brighton, in Rochester, New York, they had a fabulous wood shop in my school, except for they wouldn't let me take it because I was a girl. As I affectionately say, I showed them. But anyway, one of the adages that one of my friends who's a very good salesperson said to me many years ago, and I completely believe in it, is the theory of you call and then you send information and then you call back. I would not send information to anybody before I called them. And in my case, I'm kind of fortunate that even in whether it's nonprofit or for profit, just happened to me the other day, I found a development company I'd never heard of, and they were buying some buildings in DC. So I managed to actually call their number and get the exact correct person on the telephone. And when I said, "Hi, this is Marjorie Goldberg," the woman says to me, "Marjorie, this is blah, blah, blah. I was your property manager on 7th Street. Great to hear from you. We need art. And they came over and they're going to buy art. But I mean, so I have a very difficult time, thank God, making cold calls. They're usually warm calls. I'm a good net, been networking for decades, and so it's very hard in this town if you've been here for any length of time not to know somebody who knows somebody. I mean, you can
Right.
call somebody, and the old expression, 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
I call DC 0.5.
Yep.
So what's your question?
I don't have much of a question. I mean, it is, um, I've had some one of my problems, both in the gallery and in my donors, is they're getting a lot. My biggest donors and my biggest collectors are older now. And so it's cultivating younger ones. And now a lot of times we go, especially for the woodworking, we go to construction companies and places like that.
I see.
But my biggest single donor is going to be 90. And
Well, why don't you cultivate your old loyal donors for plan gifts?
for what gifts? Planning, yeah.
Legacy giving. Focus on that.
Okay. I like that idea.
Meet with them, and set up a easy, repeatable, specific, compelling offer to say, Marjorie, you've been with us, right? And you know what we do. And I wanted to meet to learn more about, how are you thinking about legacy philanthropy
Well, this particular
at
guy
this stage in your life, and
has been giving and
read about
giving
that.
and giving and giving. I mean, he has pretty much donated his entire art collection to either University of Baltimore Law School or Dickinson College or where he went. But he's probably donated over 100,000 to my nonprofit.
That's
And
great.
yeah, and so I will try to get more out of him. But I mean, legacy stuff he's doing like crazy, if you know what I
Well,
mean.
if he's given a lot, if here's the thing with him. If he's already given generously and he's already giving a planned gift or indicated it, right? You can enroll him as your advisor on it. You can say, "Hey, look, I'm looking to go to some of the other donors around this, and I was looking to have this kind of approach. What is your insight on this? What's your perspective?" And don't
Well,
ask him for the direct gift, but get his feedback because he's going to know what hits and what doesn't. And then you enroll him in a special way since given his, and he'll probably end up thanking you for it at some point.
yeah. Well, and for my final project in life, what I have decided, what I want to do is build a senior artist living facility where artists, because I had a big art
Cool.
center at 15th and Rhode Island in
Mhm.
1978 to 1986.
Wow.
And it was the Zenith Gallery open then. The Dance Exchange was there and Studio Theater. We all opened there. It was kind of ironic. Three Jewish
Yep.
women kind of taking over 14th Street 10 years after the riots. And then once we opened, my landlord said, we'll pay to fix up the rest of the building if you rent it out to artists. So we had 50 artist studios. And in fact, I was just reading today, and I'm going to send to a lot of people, Marion Barry had his first arts platform committee meeting in my art gallery in 1978. And a lot
Cool.
of things that Marion wanted is exactly what I want for this city, and they've never done it. And everybody loves Marion so much. Why don't you follow what his plan was? I mean, so I'm about ready to send that to Muriel's new. She replaced Beverly Perry. She was her chief of staff, Lindsay Parker, and we're the only city in the country that doesn't have a 1% for art program for developers. I mean, it's insane. And then Dave Clark and Marion Barry signed a bill in 1989 that said 1% of all buildings built by the district should have a 1% program. It wasn't even partially implemented till 2012 under DGS when Brian Hanlon was head of DGS. So all these great ideas Marion had, these people are friggin' buried. I think today might be the anniversary of his death, so I'm going to send a whole lot of things to a whole lot of people. But I really do want
Well,
to build.
thank you, Marjorie.
I want to
Appreciate it.
build this senior artist community where artists live, work, teach, perform. I want dance, theater. And one of the things he said was we need a DC museum. Well, I've always thought we needed a DC museum. And sculpture gardens and master classes and even a riverboat on the river that's near where the stadium is, with art and music to take people, on trips up and down the river. So this is what I've been pitching to the city heavily, and obviously it's going to be expensive. And but
Well,
so
Marjorie, thank you very much. I think we're getting near our end of our time, so I wanted
okay,
to be
so
able to say
that's my
goodbye
last
to
pitch.
folks. Thank you very much for your share.
Yeah.
Thank you. Last question of the day. Sorry for the wait. Malkia Lydia. Um, do you want to come off mute and share, or I can read your question from the chat as well? Um, I've
Um,
raised. Oh,
you can read it. Yeah, go ahead.
gotcha. I've raised large and small donations before, but I know we have potential to raise more large gifts. I feel torn between waiting to cultivate larger gifts in second and third meetings after folks come to an event versus the conventional ask, pass the hat at an event wisdom. Thoughts?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I always like to say that the event is the means, not the ends. And, the event can be a way to inform and inspire them to warm up the pot. So when you follow up with them, you're more likely to get engagement from them after the event. So I would stick with using the event as a door opener, a pot warmer. And then when you get one-on-one, you really learn what their potential is, what their level of interest is, and what what's possible with that relationship. Any follow-up question to that comment? How's that sounding?
It sounds good, and just that I think so many of us face it where we have the friends and the folks who wish as well. They're like, how could you have passed up an opportunity to raise money? Like, when you have people in the room, and then the anxiety that you won't ever have the people like as a captive audience again. Yeah, there's just several thoughts that kind of run through my mind when I guess maybe it's how to segment out the people who when they're in the room, you want to get that donation versus the ones that you want to somehow have them not listen to the pitch that's made there at the event and say, can we talk later? I don't know if that's even possible, but that's sort of what's running through my mind.
I mean, you might have people that, they get excited about the social and be seen element of giving in front of their peers, right? So sure, like you can do both. I mean, you can ask them for a gift and then have another meeting to ask them for another gift or set up for the next gift. So if you feel like people want to give at the event, don't feel like just because you ask them at the event, you can't have a bigger conversation about a bigger gift. It's just a different kind of conversation. The event was kind of like the energy and the camaraderie and the connection, scratch itched. But when you follow up and say, Ashley J. Williams, I'm going to have as an example, Ashley, we're so elated that you gave your first gift or you gave a second gift or you remained a loyal donor as a result of our event. Okay. Um, and you can even do this by email or on a voice message if you feel like, it's going to be too much to ask them. I'd love to hear, right, through like a short chat or coffee or even an email, what most inspired you about giving at that particular event? What did you love about it, right? What really moved you? And then when she responds by a meeting would be great, but if she responds by email, you store that away and you put her on that list of people, um, that you think would want to have a one-on-one conversation or want to hear about something. Okay, so it's not an event because you just had it, but you gave at the event. What kind of person is she gonna be that's gonna want to be having a connection? She might want to tour, or might want to meet a board member, or she might want to do one-on-one with somebody of status at the organization other than you, as an example, right? Because she wanted to be at the event to be seen. It might be that kind of thing where you connect her with a board member or a program officer, for example. And then once you have that meeting, then you can come back to and go, hey, Ashley, you know, my board chair says you were really jazzed about the conversation. Let's talk. Let's talk about how we can get you more involved in the organization, how you want to make an impact in the long term. Are you willing to have a half-hour conversation to talk about how you can make a bigger impact? And I bet she'll say yes. Great question. You got me all fired up, and we've been here an hour and a half. This is such a great group, Dwayne.
Yeah,
Thank
hey,
you.
a, a
Great
joy and a
question.
pleasure. Malkia, I placed in the chat, what I was thinking was, the event is the impulse buy, right? And everybody's like, oh yeah, like you know, this quick hit of dopamine from giving in this social moment. That's me buying the candy bar at the store. But then when I'm shopping with my list, I know that, oh, I'm going to spend more on actual food with the nutrients and whatnot that I need. So you can have both. And yeah, I think that dairy teed up the right approach. So yeah.
Dwayne, you helped me think about something really important. If somebody gives by your appeal letter, right? Um, you have less of an excuse. Like if Dwayne gives through the appeal, I have less of an excuse to reach out to Dwayne and say, "Hey, Dwayne, why'd you give for the appeal letter?" Right? If I had a major gift meeting with Dwayne and asked him and he gave, I have less of a reason to follow up with him. But if Dwayne gave at the event, I definitely have an excuse to follow up with Dwayne, right? Just like he said, like Dwayne wanted the candy bar and he ate the candy bar. And now it's like, well, Dwayne, let's have a real conversation one on one. Like, what'd you love about the event? Why did you get so jazzed? And then I think you'll be surprised that people will love to give at the event and then have a real conversation about a bigger gift later. And I think people don't follow up after event donors give because they already just gave. So
Yeah.
thank you for Dwayne for helping me think through that.
No problem. No problem at all. And thank you for this presentation. This has been Business of the Arts, brought to you by the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities. Thank you to Derry Derringer of Derringer Consulting. I placed Derry's email in the chat earlier, but you will all receive a survey, just asking for feedback regarding this presentation. And in that email, you'll also have the presentation slides and the handouts from today. And those include Derry's email, and Calendly link as well. So thank you very much for being present. Take care and be well.
Thank you, Dwayne. Great job. Thank you all.
Thank
Have a
you.
great Thanksgiving, everybody.